Right, we've got a bit of an unusual repair for you today. I had a catering company contact me, and they said that they've got this, it's called an immersion blender, and they said it's not functioning anymore, it's not working. And the backstory is they use this in their business every day, and all of a sudden it stopped working or it wouldn't function correctly. So what they had to do was they had to go out and buy another one because obviously they can't run the business without it. And the price of this, I think it's almost £300 brand new. This one here, all the model numbers have worn off it because maybe they've been using it for a long time. But I did find out that the brand was made by, it's by a company called Italinox. They've got two versions. It's got like another metal piece which screws on here, and it's got a blade on the end that does all the blending. I'll show you that in a minute. And they've got two versions. I think there's a 450mm one and a 550mm one. So I said, you know what, send it in, and I'll have a look at it for you, and if we can repair it, we'll repair it. Because these are used by catering companies, I'm pretty sure that this must be quite common. It must be a tool that is quite common in the catering industry. So I thought I'll make a repair video about this because I couldn't find a service manual for it online, and I couldn't find a video relating to this particular model either. So I think this video will be helpful for people who use this particular model. So anyway, as it goes, I got it in. The first thing I did was I tested the fuse in the plug, and I can confirm that the fuse was working fine. And then I thought, okay, there's a couple of switches here. There's one switch here and there's one safety switch here. So you press the safety switch, then you switch it on, and you can lock it into place with this button here. The first thing I thought, okay, let's open it up and let's have a look if there's any issues. But before we did that, what we did was, once we confirmed that the fuse was working, we plugged it in and we tried to start it. And what we found was that it was kind of jerking. So it wanted to start, but it wasn't starting. It was like just jerking kind of thing. So what I did then, there's two screws inside here. If you unscrew them, you can take this piece off, and then it kind of, the two plastic sides kind of pop off, and there's a few more hidden screws, I believe, inside here, and here. But once I started doing that, I realized, which I should have realized first, to be honest with you, was that there's a section here on this side. It's got a little plastic knob here, and then there's like a little window in here, and there's the same. It's the same on the other side. You've got a knob here, plastic knob. You remove that. There's a screw underneath here, and there's a window in here. So I thought, okay, before I go any further, let me, because this must be something that needs to be accessed quite a lot. So I thought, okay, let's open this and have a look what's inside here, what's going on inside here. So that's what I did. So I'm going to show you now how to open this, because if you don't know, you might find it a bit confusing. So what you do is you just get a sharp tool, something like this, and just put it in and just poke this out. This should just come out. As you can see, it's starting to come out. Right. Okay, so that's out. That's all it is. And inside here, what you'll find is, I'm just going to lift this up and show you. There's a screw in here. Okay. Now, it looks like a star shape, but don't worry about that, because if I can just get that a bit closer for you, you can actually put a flat screwdriver in there as well. If you can see the flats on the screw head, so you can put a flat screwdriver in there, and you can take that screw off. So what we'll do is we'll put a flat screwdriver in here, and I shall take this apart for you. Okay, so that's out. There you go. There's the screw. I don't know if you can see that. So you just use a flat screwdriver and you can take that off. So we've got that off now. Now, how do you remove this? I was trying to come in and I was trying to get something in here to edge it out. Then I realized it's quite easy. All you do is you get your flat screwdriver. Okay, just come in here and just lift it like this, and that's it. It comes out. So what I found was that inside here, this here is a brushed motor, and a brushed motor, what they do is they use carbon brushes. Okay, I'm going to show you what that looks like in a minute. Just give me a second. So this here is the carbon brush that is used on two sides of the motor. You'll have one on this side, and you'll have one on the other side. Okay, what this carbon brush does, it has a spring behind it, and it touches the motor, okay, and then you have another one, same thing on the other side, so you'll have another one on this side, and that's touching that, and what they're doing is they are providing power to the motor as it spins. Okay, now the back of these carbon brushes are pushed in by a spring. What happens is the carbon brush will be about this far at first, and then as you're using it over time, okay, the spring at the back will put pressure on it, and as it wears out, it will just go forward, forward, forward like this. Now, what happened with this one was, because it started to wear out quite a bit now, the connector here had kind of come off where it's supposed to be, and so that it was like contacting, not contacting, contacting, not contacting, and that's why when we were switching it on, it was just jerking, jerking, jerking. It wasn't working. Okay, now I could have just connected this back, fitted it back on, and you know it was still it would have been working. But the right thing to do would be to replace these carbon brushes because they're quite worn out now, and even if I did put it back together, they'll probably use it for another 6 months, and then they would eventually have to replace it. So anyway, I went online and I found the carbon brushes, and I'm going to show you what they look like. Here is a set of the carbon brushes that I'm going to replace it with. Okay, you can see here the carbon piece is there, and then you've got a copper cable that comes off with the connector. Okay, the measurements that you want or that you're going to need for these Italinox immersion blenders is 6mm by 9mm by 15.5mm. That's the measurement that you want when you're looking for your replacement carbon brushes. So just bear that in mind. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how I managed to get the other one off, and then I'm going to show you how to fit your new one. So let's turn it around and let's go to the other side, because the other side is still got one stuck on it, and I can show you how to take it off. Okay, so we've taken the other side off now. Same principle. Remove the screw from here and the plastic window will just come off. Okay, so I just want to take a couple of seconds to talk to you about what's going on inside here. Right, so if you have a look here, this is where the carbon brush is fitted, inside this brass housing here. Okay, now behind the carbon brush is a spring here. Okay, this spring pushes the carbon brush down into the housing as it wears out, and it provides the pressure that it needs. Now what happens is you've got a copper wire which comes off the carbon brush, okay, and it fits onto a contact point here on the housing, and then you've got another cable which comes off the circuit board, right, and that cable fits into the contact point at the back. So there's two contact points on this housing, one which is for a cable that comes off the circuit board, and there's another contact point here which is for this carbon brush. So the way you take it apart is quite simple. There's another screw here at the top. You can use your same flat screwdriver and unscrew that, okay, and then what will happen is this whole piece will come out. As it comes out, what you do is you disconnect the cable here at the back, the connector here, and that will free up this whole mechanism. Once this mechanism is freed, you can then remove this carbon brush from the inside and disconnect it from here, replace it, and fit it back together. It's just the reverse of the same process. So I'm going to do that now in front of the on the camera, so you can see how it works and how it's done. So let's do that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unscrew that screw. Just hang in there for a second. So I'm removing this screw, okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out this entire mechanism here, right, so I can still use this to kind of pop it out. So if you have a look, let's just do that. Try and get that out for you. Okay, it just needs a bit of a wiggle, but it will come out. You will get there eventually. So as you can see here, we've got this piece out. Now what we're going to do is, if you have a look here, if I can show you this, just give me a second. Right, so we've got two connectors on here. What we have to do is we have to remove that black connector at the back. Okay, and you can just pull it off. Once you pull it off, this mechanism will come free, and I'll show you how it works. Let's do that now. There you go. That's exactly what I did. I had that piece here, and I took it off this connector here. I just wiggled it, and it came off. Okay, now I'm going to show you this mechanism in detail. Let's put this down for a second, and let's talk about the mechanism. Okay, so this here is the mechanism, and this is how it works. If you can see here, if you look here, do you remember we talked about that spring earlier on? Right, so this is the spring in detail. Okay, and the spring pushes the carbon brush down into the housing. Now when you fit the carbon brush, the way it's fitted is goes in here from the front. So can you see that springiness that it's providing? So as the carbon brush wears out, the spring at the back pushes it forward, 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 and eventually obviously it's going to completely wear out, and that's where your immersion blender is going to fail. So what we're going to do today is we're going to remove this carbon brush, and we're going to replace it with the new one, and we're going to refit it back into the housing. So it's really simple to take it off. All you do is you come around here, okay, and you remove this connector here, you just wiggle it off and it should come off. So let's do that now. What we're going to do is we're going to take this from here, right, and we're just going to wiggle this off. It should come off. Okay, you might need to put like a screwdriver or something here just to push it out. So I'll do that for you. Okay, so here goes. Be careful with your fingers on these because they are quite sharp, and you might hurt yourself. You might cut yourself. Okay, so that's it. So there we go. Here it is. There's the piece for the brush. Okay, and then what you do is you turn it here. You put this through here, and this will just come straight out. Okay, and it's ready to have the replacement piece fitted. So this is what it looks like. That's a worn out brush. Okay, and I'm going to get the new brush out the pack now, and I'm going to fit it in front of you so you can see how to put it back together. Okay, so this is a new carbon brush, a nice fresh one. Okay, and we're going to put it back in now. I'm going to show you how to put it back in. So what you do is you put it in from this end here. Okay, I think that's quite clear. You're going to put it in from this end here. So what you're going to do is you're going to put this in here. Okay, and the carbon brush is going to fit inside here. See the springiness? Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take this carbon brush, okay, and you're going to connect this connector back on to here. Right, so let's do that. Okay, so just to help it go in, what I did was I put it on a flat surface, and I put a bit of pressure with the screwdriver from this side here and from this side here. So once you do that, as you can see, it's in quite snug now, and that's good enough. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put this back, so you can see that we put the brush through this end here. Okay, we brought the cable round from the back here, and we fitted it into this connector here. Okay, and all we're going to do now is we're going to connect the cable that comes off the circuit board, the black cable, onto here, and we're going to put this whole mechanism back into the housing and screw it on from here. So here's the black cable. What we're going to do is we're going to connect that cable here, like so. Right, and we're going to fit this back into the housing. You will have to wiggle this a little bit left and right, but eventually it just takes a bit of wiggle and it goes back in just like that. Now what we'll do is we'll reattach the screw. Okay, so if you have a look here, I've got it on, and I'm just going to screw that top screw down. Okay, so I just want to mention something here, if you can see here. When you put this back together, make sure that the copper cable is on the bottom end here, okay, and not coming over the spring, right? You don't want the copper cable coming off here and going over the spring, because as the brush wears out, it's going to tug on the cable. You want the cable on the bottom, so as the brush wears out and the spring pushes it down, it's not going to interfere with the spring here. And you want the cable to come through this opening here. If you can see this this opening here, you want it to come through there, and you want it to attach to this piece here. And that's the only thing you have to bear in mind. Now the other side is exactly the same, so I'm not going to show you that on camera. If you can do one, you can do the other one exactly the same. I'll put it all back together now, and we'll test it. But before we test it, I want to show you something else which I had to do for them as well, which they requested that I do, which was quite unusual. But I'll tell you about that in a second. So let's put this cover back on and we'll take it from there. So it's quite simple. You bring your cover, slide it in from the back, push it down from the front, right? Get your flat screwdriver and just screw this piece in here. Now, one thing I did notice with these is once they come off, they're not as strong as they were originally when they were installed from the factory. So what I might just do is put a dab of glue here and stick this on. Nothing like super glue. There's other glues available, like for example, if you've got any B7000 lying around, which we use for mobile phones, just put a dab of it on the bottom here, right? And it's not an aggressive glue, and just stick this back on, right? And it's the same with the other side. So I'll do that off camera, and let's move on to the next section. Okay, so as you can see, we've put it all back together. I've put the window back on the knob, plastic knob, and the same on the other side. Okay, and we're going to do a quick test now to make sure that it's all working. So the way it works is there's a safety button on the top. You press that, and then you press the button here. And as you can see, it's working perfectly. So I'm quite happy with that. And oh yeah, there was one other thing which I was going to show you. Hold on a second. Now, the other end of the immersion blender is something that looks like this, and it screws on from here. It screws on from here onto the end of it, right? Now it's got a blade here on the end. Now he did make an unusual request. He said the blade on this is worn out. He said, is it possible you could sharpen it for us, please? I said, look, you know, we only do electronics repairs. We don't do blade sharpening, but I could certainly have a try for you. So what I did was, I couldn't get this blade off. It looks like it comes off. If anybody knows how to take one of these blades off, please do leave a comment down below, so if anybody else comes in the future, they can work it out. But what I managed to do was, I had a blade. I had a blade sharpening stone that I used to sharpen my tweezers with. So when they get worn out, what you can do is you can put them in here and slide it back and forth, and it gives you like a sharp end on your tweezers. But what I found was this was the perfect size to sharpen this blade. So what I managed to do was just come along here and get it underneath here, right, and just kind of like just give it like a pull. There's a certain angle that, but you can see the angle from the side. You can't see it on the camera here. As long as you match that angle, you just push it up, right? Do the same. It's got 3 sharp edges, and then what I also did was I came round from the top, and I went down this way as well, so like that. I think I did quite a decent job on it, because when you touch the edges, they are quite sharp now, and they were a bit blunt before and worn out. So I just thought I'd show you that as a bonus tip. I hope somebody out there finds this video useful, and with that we're going to wrap it up for today. So bye for now, and have a nice day.